Hello, dearest listeners. This is Asteria here. We just released an episode of Duality Bites that had hearty spoilers for the first half of our first season, but there was a whole section that didn't really have many spoilers at all. And I thought I'd release that separately for those of you who weren't caught up or don't listen to the show, because I thought it might still have some interest for you all. So here is the latter half of Duality Bites, episode 6. Please enjoy.
Lemma's whole character concept and the concept of the Elegists, I think, is another instance of this back and forth that we're talking about. Of, you know, in the case of this flashback, I kind of gave you a sketch and you did in, or I gave you the sketch of the parents and you filled in all this detail. In the case of Lemma and the Elegists, we were having like one of our session zeros, and you mentioned as a reference point the Giver. I mentioned this in another Duality Bites, so sorry, listener.
It was during one of our one-on-one sessions.
Yeah. And
it's kind of I think
suddenly,
before I knew the DAGGERHEART term touchstone. That's basically what that would have been, in describing sort of how poetry and the caudal ward and poets function.
Yeah, in the kind of fictional Pinterest board.
Yes.
And that reference point kind of crystallized so much of what I wanted to do. And it resolved into this idea of a group of people who were committed to the act of memorializing. I also wanted to do some writing in the context of playing this character, somewhat literally minded. I was like, oh, poets, cool. And that was my first impulse when you first started talking about doing this. So I wanted to do some liturgical stuff and some poetic stuff. And so those two forces combined to make the Elegists, who were like traveling Puritan preachers meet monks, meet like Kohanim. I tried not to make them too literally any one cultural reference.
Yeah.
But yeah, you gave me a sketch, a vibe, and then the colors filled in my brain. So, listener, it works both ways.
Yeah, that's kind of what I want to emphasize, is how much of this came from us before the campaign and during the campaign, from us throwing ideas and thoughts out to each other and building on that, which gave us a foundation to throw things out to each other in RP.
Yeah, and I don't think every campaign has to be like this one, certainly.
Oh, no, certainly not.
But I do think if you want to play a campaign like this, that's very heavy on dramatic improv, I think it's worth doing a few session zeros, doing some pre-work to... Yes. You can do... Asteria very helpfully directed some improvs before we even had characters, which was a great way to get to know the people we were playing with, because none of us knew each other before, and B, started to let the incense of the campaign vibe start to infuse us, right? The sense of what we were doing and who we could be started to grow from those exercises. So do some pre-work, futz around with some ideas before you dive in to a full campaign, or not. I mean, you can also just start playing and see what happens. But that approach does lend itself more to a sort of funny dicking around style, which is also great. Don't get me wrong.
In our session zeros, kind of as a warm-up, I had us do a collaborative narration exercise, basically, where we each did a line of... We narrated something random, or like I did a sentence of narrating just something I pulled out of my ass and then threw it to someone who then had to, wherever I left off, then had to continue the narration and throw it to someone else. And we each did one line. And in the first session zero, it was totally third person. And I think my first thing was, had a dark and stormy night vibe. Literally, I used to have a thing on the side of my monitor that you can put Post-its on that had owls. And so I said something about owls.
Oh, yeah.
And the second one, I made it a little bit more GM and players. I did it second person. And there's still one sentence each. And the main reason I did that is I knew that what I wanted us to do was scary. What I wanted us to do in this campaign. And that's 4 out of the 5 of us are trained in theatrical performance, and the fifth of us is a podcaster. And part of the mission statement of this is really exploring what Daggerheart can do with narrative, finding the Daggerheartiness of the system. Not that you always have to do that with Daggerheart, but really pushing that and realizing that it's still very intimidating to go out on a limb and do that. And I wanted to see what I could do with like inviting you guys into being storytellers with me.
Yeah.
And it's still, it's still hard. And I was terrified. Yeah, it's just like as an icebreaker to try to get us to be cringe and do it wrong and get over that hump. And reminder to anyone listening that a game and a show are not the same thing. And that's a topic for a whole other episode. And it's something I think about a lot and something that I'm going to be thinking about even more when going into season 2 is where do we want them to be different? Because we're telling a story not just to each other, but also to an assumed audience, which I think most of us I think all of us, as we're used to kind of cheating out, if you will. If we were not recording this and it was just for ourselves, I think we would do pretty much what we're doing, like the 5 of us, because of who we are. And it's still like you got to warm up a little. That's what all that comes down to. It's you got to remind yourself that you're allowed to do this silly thing. And it's not just about what the dice in your character sheet give you permission to do. It's also what the wonderful people at the table give you permission to do by really wanting you to do it.
Yeah. RPGs are great.
Yeah.
In conclusion, agree 100%. I think regardless of if this were not for public consumption, I think the desire still for it to land, like for those moments to just like feel totally locked in and dramatic would still be there.
Yeah.
And I think regardless of what style of game you're drawn to, you're looking for moments where you feel like you've lived richly in a story.
Yeah. And I really love episode 6. I really love, there are so many parts of this season where we get to be dance partners and tennis opponents. Where we get to challenge each other collaboratively and challenge each other a bit more competitively as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all part of the fun, because that is part of the mission statement of the whole thing. There's a lot of this we could do without the game part, but we want the game part too.
Yeah.
We want to get one over on each other, let's be honest.
Yeah. Oh, certainly. Yeah. Officially, I'm here to help you tell a beautiful story, but secretly, I'm here to ruin your life.
Well, that would be the most beautiful story of all, Jay Ben. Winning is...
Winning is the best ending to any story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another, just maybe as a final note, I spoke in another Duality Bites about this. I had a condition for Lemma to start using his poetry. Originally, condition was see one of his friends get hurt. And as I mentioned then, that never happened at this point. Ginny or Leon got hurt, or I think Katie might have gotten hurt at certain points, but he never witnessed it. He was never there. Once we entered this camp, I was kind of getting tired of that, artificial limitation or limitation. And with the appearance of Lorelei, I was like, great, this works. I didn't anticipate this. I didn't plan it, but it does what I want it to. It gets my character where I want him to go. And so it's after this conversation, this interaction, that Lemma starts actually using his poetry in a way totally different than I envisioned, right? I thought it would be like spur of the moment. He wasn't thinking about it. It was desperation. And here it's something much more gentle, where he's like, he unexpectedly comes to terms with part of his past and learns to accept a part of himself. So I think that's a really good example of, I had a sense of like a story beat that I wanted for the character and a slightly rigid sense of how I wanted it to transition. And my game master gave me an unexpected, something that I didn't plan or think of, but gave me a better option, I think.
Which is kind of perfect for Lemma as well, who had very rigid expectations.
Yeah.
And part of this is my reluctance or just disinclination to throw you flat out villains, like villains. Not that they shouldn't exist, but I'm probably going to save them up. I think I gave you a different kind of danger than expected. And I'm realizing I gave you the kind of danger that maybe was most perplexing and infuriating to Lemma specifically, the Shadowjack camp sets up, actually, a vibe that really needles Lemma later on, which is a bunch of people saying, "You're safe here, we're your allies," and Lemma going, "That cannot possibly be true. This is not a safe environment."
Yeah.
This is a very blatant example of that I think maybe that feeling sticks with Lemma.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I hadn't made that exact connection, but I think that's right. I think that the psychic damage incurred in this encounter.
Yeah. Because one of my favorite things about Kiva listening back is how she'll just stick with a joke forever, and including the "I'm your captive." That's how she just resolved that fight by being like, "I surrender, I'm your captive," and immediately talks you into coming to her camp and she's like, "Hey everyone, these are my captors."
Right.
And then just doesn't do anything bad to you. So what are you going to do?
Right. I guess it's fine. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, actually, as we're talking about it, I think Kiva rubbed off on Lemma a little bit.
Oh yeah. Please tell me more.
Well, I think after that encounter, he's blunter. And I'm thinking about some of his behavior in the moment that you know what I'm referring to, in that sequence. I think that may have been inflected by those interactions.
Sorry, I'm just smiling, thinking about every time I pissed Lemma off.
Yeah, I think Lemma probably ranks
and
as
vice versa.
most frequently irritated PC.
Yeah, and he irritated a lot of NPCs. We got each other good. Not always when we were trying. Thank you for chatting about Elegists.
It's
and
Shadowjacks
pleasure. And parents.
And and improv and the unexpected.
Yes. And I'll talk to you soon.
Looking forward to it, Asteria.
Thank you for listening to Duality Bites, a production of Hagdeal Gaming. If you like what we're doing here, come say hi on Blue Sky or TikTok at Hagdeal Gaming. Leave us a review. We'd love to know what you think. And remember, as a wise person once said, this is not a safe environment.
Yeah.